I will go ahead and call tonight's meeting of the September 23rd, 2025 Downtown Development Authority regular meeting to order. Looks like we've got 6 of us in attendance. We are missing Jenna, so she will be absent tonight. Okay, so we've got 6 out of the 7. We will start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance with the flag behind me. All right, the second item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the regular meeting minutes from August 26, 2025? Any edits? Or do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from, help me with the date, somebody?
August 26th.
August 26.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. As for the minutes from the executive session of August 26, 2025, has everyone had a chance to review those? Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the DDA executive session meeting minutes from August 26, 2025.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Chair's report, various things are going on. Ashley, did you, it sounds like the city center revised package has not gone back into the city. Did you say that?
No, they did resubmit Friday, and so it's under review by our planning department.
They did resubmit Friday? Okay, that's good, just to know that is continuing underway. Attempting to make contact or working with the owner of the Char Griller property to getting access for some engineers to get in there to really understand how the connections between the two buildings are. But at this point, it really is a patience game working with the property owner based on their schedule. So we're not in any particular hurry. So we're simply waiting, at their convenience. So that we will keep that moving as sensitively as we can. We do have some additional information on the across the street. There's currently a lot line adjustment plat underway to correct the property line between the DDA's property and the Chambly Tap and Market property, where one of their walls is a little bit over the property line, and where we had leased them a portion of the property up near the right-of-way. So we're currently working through a lot line adjustment with them to fix that so that there are no issues with that surveyor. There's nothing over the line. But as I understand it, Ashley, we have, the city has reviewed it, made all appropriate edits, and it currently is being forwarded to the county?
Yes, that's correct. So the next step is for the county to review.
Okay. So that is currently working through the process, more of an administrative process. That's really...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Are there increasing, are they gaining property or losing property at the talking about the Tap and Market? And is there any fees for the compensation of the, whatever, is it kind of an even? I'm just kind of wondering about all that.
Wondering about that. We have discussed it with them and anticipate that they will be paying market value for the additional property on a square footage basis for the additional property that they will be gaining. I've talked with the property owner about that, and that's the approach.
That was rattling around in my head somewhere, but I'd kind of forgotten about it. It's been going on a little bit.
It's been going on for a little bit. Yes, it has. That's really all I have from the chair's report. Financial report, Jonathan?
Yeah, nothing major to report on the finances. I think everyone received the report for this month and the balance sheet, unless anyone has any questions. It's business as usual. As a reminder, our balloon payment on our existing debt becomes due December 1st, and we are in a position to pay that. As a reminder also, all of our admin payments are supposed to come in October. So we'll be looking for those next month, and that's about $875,000. So we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Excellent. Under old business, the Fraser tax incentive application. So this is an instance, I think we've discussed it previously, that the Fraser at Old Town Gordon is requesting a $25 million incentive for the development of the project. That incentive does include components for affordable housing. Our tax incentive strategy does identify quantities for affordable housing components. Based on that, they're proposing 63 units at 80% of AMI. Based on that, those 63 units, our incentive strategy identifies a $225,000 incentive per unit. In total, that works out to $14,175,000 of that requested incentive for the affordable housing component. Rod, would you like to present anything as far as the project? Tell us anything about it?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank everybody for giving us a consideration and opportunity to present the project to you. And I also want to thank the city of Chamblee, the city manager, and the city mayor and city council. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I'd like to thank the city of Chamblee for the opportunity, the Downtown Development Authority for making the presentation to you and for this request. I also want to thank the city manager and their staff and the mayor and city council for approving our DCI application last Thursday. We had a large request for variances and waivers, and we'd worked through all of them in a way that I believe that meets the goals and the intentions of the downtown development plan. And this is the next step in that process to make sure we build a project. As you all are aware, that this site, we've owned this site since the first two parcels we bought in 2020. The third parcel we bought in 2023, which is a abandoned auto repair shop for some time. And then the fourth parcel we bought, we had put under contract, and we're looking to start construction around January timeframe. And so for us, working with you, working with our design team, working with our contractors, time is of the essence. So this project, I shared with the team what would happen if we did not do the development with the parcels that we have, and there's no construction on it. And so if there's no construction, we're going to pay the city of Chamblee and DeKalb County and DeKalb County schools roughly $47,000 next year. And we will continue that, and I believe the city of Chamblee's share of that is 25%. And so the city will get roughly $11,000 plus or minus of that number. And that number stays kind of steady And these numbers are based upon Ryan Tax Consultant, the property tax consultant, which is kind of the leading tax consultant in the United States, based upon, and they operate here in DeKalb County and Chamblee, what they project the taxes to be over the next 10 years. Those numbers will be relatively flat. They'll bump up a little bit to 51,000. I think the time frame is 2028. But there's not an appreciable growth in the revenue coming to the city of Chamblee, to DeKalb County, or to the DeKalb County school system if we do nothing or not go forward with the tax abatement. If we do go with the tax abatement, our numbers see a dramatic rise after 1 year of construction. I gave you a sheet over there. You could probably kind of look at it. It kind of details what I'm talking about, but that sheet shows in the 2026 timeframe, we have a value of the property with half of the construction goes up to $52 million. Now, I want to be very blunt and plain here. All of that $185,000 comes to the city of Chamblee. So the difference is not $40,000 or $50,000. It's $11,000 or $12,000 versus $185,000. And then once we get the building built the following year, that number jumps up to $372,000. And all of those dollars come to the city of Chamblee. So as you can see, and it just goes out. What that does over a 10-year time period, and you can see that in the sheet that I gave you, that gives you roughly $2.9 million of tax dollars coming to the city of Chamblee, whereas if you did nothing and not do the tax abatement, you would have $520,000 that you would have to split between DeKalb County and DeKalb County schools, and I think your portion is somewhere around 25% of that. You'll get that over the 10-year period. So for us, the opportunity to the citizens of Chamblee are pretty obvious. Now, for the reason why we need this is because we have a site that is 2.7 acres. This site is a great site. We love this site. It is much, much smaller than Chamblee Heights site. It is much, much smaller than the Bixby, the Lumen site across the street. If we had a site that was 5 acres, okay, or 6 acres, we could do a much cheaper parking deck. Based upon the forms that I sent you on your desk, we're looking at a cost of the parking deck that is north of $12.8 million. If we had a bigger site of 5 to 6 acres, that number would come down considerably, closer to $7 or $8 million, and would make this a much easier project to finance with the private capital. We think that this is an extraordinary site inside of an extraordinary downtown development plan, but because of the size of the site, we have to do a poured-in-place parking deck. As you can see, these numbers are relatively fresh. Our contractor provided us these numbers. They're CBG, working with our architects to figure out what we need to do with that. And this is the building. Thought I should show you what we're looking to do. And this is consistent with the DCI application, consistent with the plan for downtown, where we will be putting in the rail trail, where we would be putting in the supplemental zone for the folks in the community to enjoy the building. We also agree to have our interparcel connection to provide some level of economic development for our neighbors to the north of us. And so they will have an opportunity, if they so choose, to connect and use that parking deck that we're building there also.
And you're talking about the Wheels Up location, correct? The Wheels Up, the current Wheels Up clinic.
The current Wheels Up, and which is a great, the current Wheels Up, yeah, which is a great downtown economic driver for the community. And so we've made that interparcel connection for them. We have sustainability in the building. It's a south-faced building. We have electrical vehicles. So we think that we're aligned with all of the economic and community and environmental goals of the city. And I think I covered everything. If not, please ask me any questions.
I've got a couple of questions and clarification points. So your tax calculations are based on a 80% abatement and a 20% payment, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and just to clarify, the way that the DDA typically does their payments, we try to look at a 10% administrative payment that comes to the DDA and a 10% payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot payment that goes to the taxable revenues, of which I think roughly 25% comes back to the city. So just to clarify the way those numbers typically work with a, if we were to consider an 80% abatement, it would be a 10% administrative payment to the DDA and a 10% pilot payment to the normal taxing entities.
And we are very comfortable with that arrangement.
Does anyone have additional questions for the applicant?
I think, talking with some of the other guys and gals in the group, that there's a concern about getting to the $25 million number. An abatement is basically a financial gap filler. And you're asking a big number, and we need to feel comfortable about giving out that number. And we can get up to about 14, 15, 16. I was wondering, would it be possible that we could audit your underwriting for this?
You can audit, I think that we provided the pro forma, but we can give it to you tonight. The key that drives our underwriting is this number right here. This is about 80% of my costs, and I brought that was in our package. And so let's kind of talk through our rents, because that's the other side of the equation. Our rents have a little bit of cap on it because of the affordable units that we have there, and we're at the mercy of, not the market, but we're at the mercy of whatever HUD and they reset the rents every year. So we're kind of flying blind for about 63 of the units. But the cost to build our building is, as you can see, north of $250,000. Really, it's closer to $350,000. And our cost structure is much higher than all of our neighbors. But we have to charge the same rents as all of our neighbors. And nobody's going to underwrite a deal with higher rents. We can fudge it a little bit because our units, our top floor is a little taller, and maybe we can get a premium on those units that are on the 6th, 7th, and 8th floor. But where we're being judged is by the manor right now. And that's kind of an open book. You can go to CoStar and you see what they're charging for the rents. You go on their website, see what they're charging for the rents. And we kind of have to line up with those guys. And that's not me. That's our capital partners in New York. That's our bank here. They're going to say, hey, Rod, we like you, but we don't think you're going to outperform, your neighbors.
So, sorry about that. I know that this chart, which for me was very helpful, you creating that. That was not something that was in our packet. And, because the table, like that was shown there, we had a couple versions of that table come through. I'm just not good at reading tables, but I can really read a chart like that. But anyway, and I think for a lot of us, we're still trying to mash everything together and try to come up with, because I don't think any of us picked up on the fact, at least I didn't, that there was a pro forma included in your abatement packet. I don't know how we missed it, but I did. So it is what it is. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it, or just.
Was it in there?
It was in there. Yeah. Again, I'm not trying to put the blame on you or anybody here. It's my fault. I didn't read it. I didn't notice it, and I also didn't really. Anyway, it's my fault. So I think there's a couple of us that are in that same picture. So I think for me, I need a little more time to digest this before I could actually do it, because there's a pretty wide gap between 18 million and 25 million. For us to kind of got to figure out how to close that gap. But I also want us to recognize the fact that you are the property owner, and there's a lot of times that we have projects that come before this, and if we tell them no, they go away, and we don't have to worry about it again. And I'm not trying to say this to be derogatory, but you're not going anywhere, so we got to figure out something, sooner or later. And I don't want to. We have some real world examples that we deal with. I don't want to kick this can down the road another 4 years while we wait for another version. Is this third version that's before?
This is the.
So this would be. We don't want to wait for 4.0 to come. At least I don't. And it's a significant location in our downtown area. It needs to be something besides what it is. That one property that's the core property you have that's closest to the Peruvian restaurant that nobody's been to, that's been vacant for close to 15 years. So, I mean, there's been a whole lot of nothing going on over there. The tenants that were there that you bought out, thankfully, were not the best. Probably shouldn't have said that in public, but I did. We're glad that you own them instead of who the previous owners. At least I am. I don't know. I think we just need to. Again, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I just really hope that we decide to maybe defer this to next month, and then get a chance to digest this mountain of information. That's my thoughts on it, and that's not a motion yet.
I wouldn't mind going over the pro forma, because I didn't see it as well, and I missed it, and that's my fault. We want you to be successful, and I agree with John. That's a blighted area. That needs to be developed, and I know you've been sitting on it for a while. You put a lot of effort and time into it. It's a partnership. We want you to be successful, too. And we want, it is close to the downtown city center area, which is something we have put a lot of effort into making it great and continuing to grow it and making it successful, and also creating something, of value for the public as well. That's a big part of this. And so I would like to defer this for another month.
Can I just ask a hypothetical question?
Yes, sir.
So if we don't hit that 25, but we get somewhere below it, hypothetically, so it's still a significant tax incentive, tax abatement, excuse me. Could you still, is it dead, or are we your last option to make this work? Could you go somewhere else? And
Well, I can't go
fill that
anywhere.
gap?
I can't.
I feel somewhere, I don't know, are we your last, if we don't get that 25, is that it, or could you make it work at a lower number?
So, as you know, we are at the mercy of the markets, right? And so the markets for a long, long time have had an elevated 10-year treasury. And the 10-year treasury has been bouncing between 4.10, which it is today. I think it got as low as 4% a couple of weeks ago, and 4.8% for the last year. The 10-year treasury drives something what we call the yield on cost and cap rate. And those two numbers determine where investors kind of allocate their capital. And if we are telling the institutional investors who are very, very interested in doing a deal in Chamblee right now, that their yield on cost is going to be less than 6%. Ideally, they want 6.5 in this environment. They want a spread about 200 to 250 basis points, or 2.5%, 2% to 2.5%. They will say, well, Rod, we like you, we like Chamblee, but there is a safer money and with less risk to put our capital at this particular point in time. And so that's the ask for the capital. Will the 10-year Treasury drop, another 75 basis points over the next year? I certainly hope so. And then the project becomes feasible. But absent of a dramatic drop in that index, which we have no control over, it's kind of a market-driven process, we're at the mercy. Now, you said a very direct question. Is this or drop dead? Okay. There are some other methods we could use within the DCI groundwork that we put forward. So we would have to go through and really tighten up our value engineering process with our architects and our engineers. One thing that, we can't do is that we have the force of law with the DCI application, the variances now, so we have to adhere to the height and the fenestration and the brick and all of that stuff. We did have to do that. But we could get some savings through value add engineering, and we may get some help in pricing coming down on construction. I mean, that's a possibility, but that is something that's not proven out right now. So we're willing to have a conversation, but we would only know that until we get to the beyond the design development of the plans. So that's a long-winded way to say is that it's possible for us to take less. We just don't know if it's feasible for us to take less.
So in the past, thinking of the Whole Foods development in the past, we kind of did things with what we called at the time buckets of money, where we had, depending on some different things on how they went up or down. It wasn't just, here's a check for $25 million, fly be free. You had to prove certain metrics at the Whole Foods. Now, I don't know, that's more of a Brian knows how that was structured. I wasn't part of that process, but I didn't know if there's some way we could structure this where there's different buckets of money to maybe address some of these variables, or that it's very complicated, I'm sure, but I just trying to think outside the box, and rather than just say, well, hopefully it works out, and hopefully it, whatever, we can actually tighten it up through some checks and some balances, so he has to prove these. I'm kind of just spitballing it here, so I don't really.
So I think that's an excellent idea. I believe that is an excellent idea, because if we can all agree that what's driving this is the 10-year Treasury, that's the variable that we can look at every day and see where that's at. And we can say, hey, if it's moving up, then you guys need the $25 million. But if it's down 75 basis points, and that means that risk-free dollars are that they're demanding is also down. So instead of needing 6.5, now we're at 5.75, and then our cost structure looks a lot different, right? And so our cost structure is X. We don't need to, have an NOI that's producing a 6.5. That makes perfect sense to me.
So we had on the, again, Brian, correct me at any point if I get this wrong, but we had a cap. Like, it was not going to go above this ceiling.
It
We had a
wasn't gonna
ceiling.
go above that
It could
ceiling.
only go down
It only
based
go down.
on real-world conditions. I don't know if I said that right, but actual costs or,
And again, it gets really fuzzy. My recollection, it's been a while since I've looked at the details of the MOU with the Whole Foods property, and I wasn't directly involved in that negotiation. I do recall that there was a pot of money associated with the environmental remediation costs that they would have to document in order to get that full pot, of if we were going to refer it to that way. I think there were some additional costs for traffic light relocation and power pole relocation potentially, and some other things that we were going to require that they document. I think we probably could look at how do we structure something so that the abatement might be tied to the 10-year treasury, perhaps at the time that your certificate of occupancy was granted?
I would say for us, we could look at it. That's one way to look at it. That's possible. The drop-in when everybody's committed is when the LDP is at. So if we say that when we,
Probably how long?
that's going to be, if I can get it done in January, February
Of next year.
of next year.
So we're talking at about a timetable that's 5 or 6 months away.
Six months away, yeah.
And so, personally, I don't see a 0.75% drop in the 10-year treasury in 6 months. They seem to be moving much slower, but my crystal ball when it comes to that is notoriously flawed, so, I couldn't even begin to guess. But it does seem like it's unlikely to adjust significantly in a 6-month period.
are we talking about what it is at that time or having it float over the years?
No, I don't think anybody could go for it to float over the years. That would create a nightmare for administrative
Okay.
processes, I think, and it probably wouldn't work with your financing.
What we could do, though, is just think through this. Why don't we do a hybrid approach, okay? There are going to be some cost savings, possibly, or there may be some cost overruns, possibly. But if they're cost savings, which we can kind of prove out, and we're saying that today, we think the park index is going to cost $12.8 million. Say it comes in at $9 million. That's a cost savings, and we'll be an open book to you on that, right? That's an open book, and so we can say that. That's one pot of money. And then the 10-year treasury can be a second pot of money, and we can kind of look at those two in conjunction. So the cost puts you at the CO, and the 10-year treasury puts you at the LDP.
I hear what you're saying. It's getting kind of complicated.
Yeah, and I think this is not something we're going to figure out tonight.
And
This is going to be,
we definitely wouldn't talk about it tonight.
I'm available to negotiate and provide financial analysis immediately, and we can kind of work this out, I believe, in the spirit of getting this done in the next couple of weeks, and then kind of move forward, and I think we can do that, so.
I've got some thoughts, but I wanted to wait till everybody else has had a chance to speak before I speak, just so if anyone else has questions.
Just personally speaking, I'm still digesting all the information, all of our analysis. So, yeah, we're not going to be able to make a decision today, I don't think, in my opinion, but we respect your timing and your interest in doing this, and we want to get this, one way or the other, an answer to you as quickly as possible. That's just speaking for myself, but
Okay.
today there's way too much information that we haven't thoroughly reviewed as a group.
Yeah.
Yep.
Seth, it looks like there's thoughts rattling around upstairs for you.
There's plenty, but I'm going to collect it.
Jonathan, do you have thoughts, questions?
Appreciate your time. I think it's a great project. Don't know if we'll get there to the 25, but like everyone said, I think we need to talk about it, have a serious discussion, talk to our council about some of these proposals for the different buckets tied to treasury, tied to savings, contingency, those types of things. I do think that might be a bit of an administrative challenge, evaluating that year after year. If we were looking at the treasury and, you know, treasury goes down, abatement goes down, that type of scenario. But definitely some interesting things to think about, and looking forward to figuring it out.
My general thoughts, you know, one of the things that over the years as we've had conversations about tax incentives for these projects is that there's a concept with the gratuities clause, as Dan likes to refer to it, where the incentive must be related to the public benefit. And so that's clearly, we've got a public benefit associated with the affordable housing component. So for me, that's pretty fixed, you know, that's pretty black and white. It's, you know, $14 million and change. It's the $10 million in change between that number and the 25 million that you're requesting that I'm wrestling with. You know, historically, we did, you know, just looking at what else has happened in the area, the Lumen Chambly, which is now the Bixby, I think it had something like a $3 million incentive. It came down a little bit because they wound up not doing the street right-of-way improvements that had been initially discussed. When we looked at the Chambly Manor, I think that was $5 million or something when we did that. And that incentive had a lot to do with acquiring an additional piece of property that was not on the market, that if it was not developed as a part of the property might sit and be difficult to develop, and acquiring that property also allowed direct access to the stoplight. So there were some reasons why we were doing that. You know, as we've also discussed the Chambly Heights project, which is immediately around the corner from where your project was done without an incentive. And granted, that was a couple of years ago. The interest rates were at a dramatically different place at that time, so I'm aware of that. You know, looking at your parking structure, you do have a more expensive parking structure. You know, I think that just in round numbers, you're looking at about $40,000 a parking space for your cast-in-place parking structure. You had mentioned that precast parking structures were often in the neighborhood of $30,000 a parking space. So that $10,000 a parking space difference for the 300 parking spaces works out in round numbers to about $3 million. So I do see a benefit to getting the project done sooner rather than later. I do see some benefit to that. But when I start putting all of these pieces together, I start coming up with an incentive worth $17 or $18 million.
Yes, so,
And so that's where I'm just acknowledging from, I have a really hard time getting beyond that number and still being able to justify the public benefit. Just to let you know where I'm sitting right now.
yeah, can I share 2 points to you? One point is, which I have not really focused in on the past, closing that is December. That's when our contract ends. That parcel, .27 acres, we need that to get the unit count that we need. And that parcel's costing us, open book, $950,000 plus or minus, okay?
What's the size of that parcel you said?
.27 acres.
.27.
.27 acres.
So it's $3.5 million an acre, round numbers.
Plus or minus, yeah.
I'm-
Yeah. So,
Size of that property was?
.27 acres.
.27, and you said $3 million?
$3.5 million an acre. If you.
Oh, he pays
If
the
you
rate.
take 900,000 that he's asking, multiply it roughly times 4, back off the, I work in round numbers, and so that, right, at a per acre price, just because I'm aware of what properties, right?
Right, no, I get it.
So that property was an auto repair shop, then it became a furniture repair shop, and they have agreed not to lease it out to anybody else from an industrial use, and we think that we're the best buyer of that property. We're overpaying for what they paid for the property, just to make the deal work because we can get the additional density. So we think that that is part of the public good. But the second element of the public good, which we have agreed to work with Wheels Up on, is providing access right here from Wheels Up, where the grade is about 2 to 3 feet, allow them to have access to the parking deck and set aside 40 parking spaces for them that they can rent for their workers, because I believe there's a challenge downtown with their parking over there. So that's the other public good, is that this will be for our residents. Because we are a transit-oriented development firm, that we're adding more bicycle racks and bicycle furniture per the DCI application, the waiver application, and looking for that. So we do believe that we have public good. I understand, Mr. Chairman, your rationale for how you got to your numbers. I would make one slight correction, and I don't know if the math is that meaningful, but we're looking at somewhere at $42,917 per space, but we're also looking at like $49,000 per unit. And so the question is, do we do it per space or per unit from that perspective? And so if we looked at it on a per unit basis, the cost will be, the chunk price will be a little higher versus per space. But I want to get the project built, all right? And time is of the essence because my contract ends here pretty soon. So I'm willing to listen to the chair's rationale and to figure out if there is somehow we can kind of bridge the gap between his $18 million number and I can come down by a $25 million number so we can get this thing moving.
I think we definitely have some stuff to review, but I think you ought to, my suggestion would be if you could come up with your drop dead number. Like, this is my cutoff point, and we can discuss that, you know, how close we are to that. If there is some wiggle room, because like you can hear that there's some concern here still with the $10 million difference. And I would feel more comfortable if there was a little give and take on that.
Yeah, so again, my point is that I heard the chairman says that his number is closer to 18. Is that what I heard? And so we're not at 10 million anymore, we're down to 7 million, right? Yeah, and so I'm thinking that I'm willing to take some economic risks and look at cost, the best way we can look at costs. And because I believe very deeply in the project. So, you know, I need to get back with my team, my construction team, and go through the analysis. And, you know, we're not going to be at a 6.5% yield on cost. I mean, that's the number that we're not going to be at. But I believe that $7 million, we could figure out a drop dead number between 18 and something much less than 25.
The last thing I'm going to say on this is, you know, you got to consider this, go back to the chart, that one. I don't know where, I mean, obviously 2034 is a long time away, so you don't want to say, well, you can close the gap right there with $2.5 million. Well, that's assuming that nothing, absolutely nothing gets done. I don't think that's realistic, but I also want to say, well, if you start dialing it back, you know, there could be a part of that. I will also say that Councilperson Robson, you know, she put in a condition that the wheels up, because we recognize and remember that the vintage pizza lot, which where Wheels Up is parking now, is being used by them. And it's our hope that's the reason why we put it in, that can go away. That's the reason why we wanted that access into his parking deck. So there's a lot of intangibles. You know, it's real easy to talk about the numbers, but there's also a lot of intangibles that I think we need to think about, like how is this going to affect the parking downtown, and not, you know, and if another project that has less parking gets built in less density, how does that affect, you know, anyways, just again, the vacant lot being vacant for 15 years, I think is important. Again, these are all just, they're hard to quantify, they're hard to put a number on, but I think this definitely are worth our time to consider. And I don't know what that number is either, so don't ask me.
How many of your 300 spaces would be open to the public?
So we said 40, and so we would have 40 of that to make that available to the public. And if Wheels Up would like to buy it in bulk or rent it in bulk, we would give it to them there.
But those 40 are also intended to be used by your retails, the users.
No,
of your
we're
retail.
gonna have 20 more for the retail, and then what we'll do is that we'll have Mr. Chan, who owns the property for the daycare next door. We would have a level of valet parking at night for the folks. So, but you know, so we're open to being a daytime, nighttime parking opportunity for the community. Now, I do need to make one point, though. The parcel which we have agreed to do the inner parcel because of the topography, this is the easiest way to do topography, is the parcel we don't own. I mean, that's the parcel we don't own. And our contract ends in December. And so that's why I'm kind of pushing to get this thing done and closed.
I definitely think we can figure out something by December.
I agree.
So don't worry about that.
Okay.
And as for the vintage parking, yeah, I mean, at some point, if we get that building taken off of there and clean up that property and sell it, those parking spaces are not going to be available to Wheels Up. So, of course, it'll be a while before your development would get finished, but it would be a benefit to them in the long run.
Quick point of clarification. You said 40 spots for Wheels Up, but then an additional 40 spots for the public, or the same 40 spots that you're giving to Wheels Up?
Yeah, so I have not had a conversation with Wheels Up. What I said, I'll set aside 40 spaces for the public, and if Wheels Up express an interest, we'll just give them to them wholesale. So we're not saying 80 spaces, no, sir.
It sounds like we would like to defer this to the next meeting so that we can further refine the potential incentive package. Is that correct?
Yeah, based on what I know, I think we can definitely make a decision by October. There might be some details that need to be worked out after October, but we can definitely, I think I should be ready for in October, but that's just me. So we don't have it, I think we're way far away from December, so.
Yeah,
Is that when your money goes hard, or is just the contract over, or what is
Yeah,
it?
no, the contract is over at that time, and so if we do the incentive package in, say, October the 15th, or I'm not sure when the next meeting is, then we would have to have some time to put it all together, and then we're running into the holidays. But if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. If we could do it sooner in a special call meeting, I would love to do that. I just don't want to run out of time during the holidays.
It'll be around the 20th of next month. I don't know if it, give or take.
I'd be open for a special call if we had to
If-
try to push this through,
Second
but I think I can review and have it, make a decision
Yep.
sooner than another month.
The next meeting is October 28th. So that is running pretty close to Thanksgiving for them.
So we certainly could look at a special called meeting at some point within the next couple weeks, I think.
Either way, right, whether it's a special called meeting or the 28th, we're still, I think you're just looking for an up or down so you can close on the property or schedule a closing on the property and then, that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
But you should be, I don't know how long these things takes, but it should be fine.
Is there any further information that we need to make a decision?
Like I said, I was unaware of the, I forgot what it's called now, but the
And we
Performa until
Are we,
city manager told me, said it's in the packet. Didn't you read it? And I'm like, no.
if questions come up, are we permitted to ask questions outside of this forum?
Sure.
To him directly?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, I would ask that anybody that has questions, direct them to me, and then I'll coordinate with Rod, and vice versa. If there's anything you need to send, make sure that gets out to them.
Okay, we look forward to that, and this is our highest priority. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
For your
Thank you,
cooperation.
appreciate it.
Okay.
I don't believe we need a formal motion to defer it. We just can take no action. Okay? Next item on our agenda is new business, the Second Amendment to the Purchase and Sale Agreement with Greystar Development East LLC. And I'll be the first one to admit I don't have the details of this rattling around in my head. I know that it is related to the abatements, or, no, I'm sorry, it's related to the environmental cleanup
Yes.
for
So-
the project.
Yeah, so essentially all this does is kind of cleans up on the Greystar side, the environmental work for the Pierce property that you all approved at the special called meeting in August. So all that does is include the approved GeoHydro engineer's proposal as well as the approved amount for Hitch Law related to the environmental work.
So really, at this point, unless somebody has a question, would like to discuss it further, we're looking for a motion to authorize the chair to sign the Second Amendment to the Purchase and Sale Agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chair to sign the Second Amendment to the Purchase Sale Agreement.
Do I have a second? I have a second on the Second Amendment. All those in favor? It looks like that passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the loan terms. So what we're talking about tonight are the terms that we have received from United Bankshares regarding the loan to purchase the Pierce properties. And this is where I will admit to not having asked the right question or not talked to the right people, where I was not aware that the DDA could only borrow money through a revenue bond or a revenue note rather than a conventional loan directly with a bank. And because of that, it takes a little bit longer to go through the process to have certain things prepared and reviewed. So because of that, I don't believe we're really going to have the opportunity to go to a larger number of potential lenders for this and to bring them up to speed on what we're trying to do and answer their questions. I do believe that United Bankshares has given us a good term sheet, you know, a competitive term sheet. We've been working with them. They are the lender on the other loan that we have paid down over time for the purchase of our other properties. They hold our accounts. They've certainly been a good partner with the DDA. So what I would ask is that the DDA authorize the chair to work with, you know, to accept their terms and to work towards that. But, you know, at this point, I'd like to open it up for discussion if I don't believe that we can talk about the specific terms in open session, but certainly we can talk about them in general, and if people have questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Apologies, I wasn't at the last meeting, so can you just do a quick recap on what this loan is for again?
Absolutely. So what this loan is for the purchase of the 2 parcels that are a part of the city center project that are not owned by the DDA. Initially, we had anticipated that the purchaser of the DDA's parcels would purchase the parcels from Mr. Pierce directly at the same time. Due to the way that the timing of the overall project, the desire to do some things earlier, the desire to make a deal with Mr. Pierce that included an earlier closure date, we decided as the DDA to purchase those properties directly and then sell all of the properties to Greystar Development East as a part of the city center project. So really what we're looking at is the terms of the loan are basically anticipating a 6 to 24 month holding period. We've got an additional 12-month period that we can get on the back end if it takes longer. The anticipation is that we'll hold this property for 6 months. Hopefully everything will go well with Greystar. They'll be in a position to close on the overall city center project at some point between 6 and 12 months from now. So our agreement, the purchase and sale agreement for the Pierce properties are such that we need to close on those by December 15th. And so what we're looking at now is a little bit less than 3 months to go through the full paperwork process to get the loan done, to get the loan funded so that we can close on the Pierce property. So that's really what the overall timing and what we're trying to do.
Thank you, I recall that now.
Okay? Additional questions, discussion?
And one of the benefits of doing this is also in case, you know, we had a nuclear meltdown as far as the project, we wouldn't have to, because I'm going to guess that the Pierce family would not be in favor of waiting another 2 years while we get it together. So this just takes that variable out of here, out of the mix.
There are certain advantages, and what we do anticipate is that worst case scenario, a economic holocaust happens where everything falls apart. We probably would be looking to refinance these properties for a long-term loan through a slightly different process. So worst case scenario, something like that happens, we would probably be coming back and discussing long-term financing. We don't think that's happening. Greystar is certainly moving forward with their planning process with all due speed. So we do anticipate that will be closing it. the overall sale of all the properties to Greystar at some point between 6 months and 12 months from now. But we do have some options out there. Additional discussion, I do believe we have a draft motion. If somebody would like to make that.
Sure. This is the motions provided by Dan. Yep.
Yes.
Resolved as follows, the DDA has received from United Bankshares a term sheet dated September 19th, 2025 for financing terms for 5546 and 5554 Peachtree Road. The board hereby authorizes the chairman of the DDA in consultation with counsel to the DDA on behalf of the DDA to accept the term sheet and negotiate and accept any commitment letter based on the term sheet, provided that additional approval of the board shall be required for any commitment fee or loan fee that is payable before closing of the financing. Proceed with preparation by DDA counsel of financing documents based on the term sheet for consideration by the board for approval at another meeting, and take such other actions as may be necessary or desirable in connection therewith.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have multiple seconds. I will give that one to Matt slightly. All those in favor? That motion passes unanimously. Next item under new business is the Taste of Chambly. Ashley, would you like to address this?
Yes, so this is in part just information, but also just to keep in line with how we've been doing these event approvals this past year. So our community engagement department is planning for the Taste of Chambly on October 18th, and they're planning to use some DDA lots and requesting to use some DDA lots. It should be the exact same that has been done in previous years. So they would like to use vendor parking on 2161 Urbandale, vendor parking and restroom location at the Vintage parking lot, so that's 5442 Peachtree Road, and then just more for awareness, and I don't think there's any potential use, but I did include it in the motion just in case anything comes up, the use of 3519 Broad Street, which is the parking lot next to Chambly Tappan Market. Again, this should be the same as previous years, and then if they haven't already, they will be notifying those businesses, and they are working with those businesses on that event, and I believe Vintage, along with others along that route as well, are participating.
Can definitely tell this motion was not written by a lawyer as opposed to
It's
the
just
last
written
one.
by me.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve City of Chambly usages of 3519 Broad Street, 2161 Urbandale, and 5442 Peachtree Road for the Taste of Chambly event on October 18th, 2025.
Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Matt. All those in favor? That motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is public comments. We have an esteemed council member and city manager in the audience tonight. Would either of you like to address the DDA? Excellent. We do not have an executive session. The next item on the agenda is adjournment. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Our meeting is adjourned.
I don't know why it's irking me so much about that money. What? I don't know why it irks me so much about that ask. It's too much money.